Welcome back to MouthpieceSports.com's Buzz Session, again at the campus of DePaul University in Lincoln Park in Chicago. And again, talking women's sports, and we have a very qualified panel to do that. I'll start on the corner with the assistant volleyball coach at St. Xavier and a former Big Ten Player of the Year, Ann Eastman Kuzel. Ann, thanks for taking time.
Thank you.
In the middle, the head volleyball coach at the Latin School and a former Big Ten player at the University of Wisconsin, Liz Tortorello Nelson. Liz, thank you for being here.
Thanks.
And our representative from the softball diamond, the head coach at St. Ignatius and a former star player at Kalamazoo College. This is Megan Radler. Ladies, club sports and scholastic traditional sports, the high school, the college teams, are they at odds with each other? Because sometimes you get the impression that sometimes student athletes, when you have them and you have them on the court and you have them for 2.5, 3 hours a day, they're yours. But when they walk out of there and somebody else is telling them what to do, maybe not the same idea you're trying to get across. I'll start with you, Coach. Is that something that parents and coaches are concerned with or should be concerned with?
I think it's definitely something to think about, but without club sports, I don't know if you can play at the next level. I don't know if just playing one or the other only a couple months out of the year, specifically to volleyball, because volleyball, those two things don't overlap, whereas in soccer, you have to pick. You have to pick either during the school year or club, whereas volleyball, it's almost 11 months around the year of playing that sport. So I think club ball is very important that the kids play, because you're talking about another 9 to 10 months that you're touching a ball and getting more repetition than kids who only play, like double-sported athletes who only play 3 months out of the year. So playing at the next level, I think there's only a very few people that can probably get by only doing 2 to 3 months of training and not playing club. Probably very few athletes.
Coach Tortorello Nelson, what are they learning then in club sports that is helping you during the traditional scholastic season?
Well, my rule of thumb is, for my kids in the high school level, is I tell them anytime you touch a ball is a good thing. So if they get out there and just play pepper on the beach or with a buddy, they're doing more than just sitting there not touching the volleyball. So I encourage them to keep up their sport, but I also encourage them to play as many sports and be active as possible. And I'm a product of club volleyball, and I had a great experience. And I know I got all my training from club and none from my high school.
Really?
My coaches in high school, they were great people, but they were not as skilled coaches. They had a lot of club volleyball players on their team, and they did a great job of organizing and managing at that time and keeping us together as a team, but they did not teach us the game of volleyball. And I know that could be flipped for other programs as well. So for me, my personal experience, I got all my training from club, none from high school. But I know in today's age, there's so many more qualified high school coaches out there. So I don't know, I think it's up to the individual. And I always say it's a family decision. But my rule of thumb is anything you do active is going to get you to the next level.
Let me ask that question to Coach Radler. Softball is huge, and I think a lot of times you have dads and so forth coaching, and perhaps not as skilled coaches as you would have. She was just alluding to. Is that an issue also in softball club?
I think in any sport it's going to be an issue, but one thing that I always say to the girls is that you're going to have to adapt to different coaches. You have coaches for this, you have coaches for that, just like later in life you have a certain boss that's going to say this and someone else that's going to say that. The idea of athletics is that you're learning life skills. I mean, how many girls are actually going to transfer onto Big Ten programs or play professionally? So the reality is that wherever they're playing is a good thing for them. Whether they're getting the wrong kind of instruction, yeah, it certainly is somewhat of an issue. But I feel like when I get them in my program, whatever I say goes. When someone else has them in their program, whatever they say goes. And they have to learn how to adapt. And that's kind of how it is in life.
I would think that could create problems, but obviously you see more positives than negatives. And players' development, we're seeing all kinds of different ways for players to develop these days, not just in the club and not just at school afterwards, but personalized training and so forth and so on, individualized camps. Spark training is a topic we've tackled here on The Buzz many times. You've seen the advent of that, I think, from your own playing days up until now currently. How impactful has that been on women's athletics and specifically volleyball?
Well, I run with my business partner, we run Elite Volleyball Program, which is third through high school, learning the fundamentals of volleyball. So you're in a non-competitive, really, atmosphere, and you can learn, and just, it's okay to make a mistake, you're not losing a point, you're not risking playing time. So there's always things that you can do there that maybe under your coach's eyes, you're a little bit more nervous, or you're just a little bit unsure of, I don't want to take that risk, whereas I think if you can learn on the side and put all your energy into just learning instead of concentrating so much on, if I make a mistake, they're going to take me out and things like that, I think that it's very important. So private lessons, I know they talked about a little bit about speed training, you guys talked about in the previous session, and I think that those things are important. But again, like Coach Bruno said, you have to do it you have to have the right teacher. That's really the main thing. You have to have the right teacher teaching the right skills. And really, at our program, we're more about building self-esteem, which I think is lost somewhere today in young kids, the self-esteem of having to be the top athlete, having to be the best. And I don't know if that comes from the top, starting, in their family situation, but I think just building self-esteem and learning in an environment where you can take risks is a great way to learn.
Isn't that what part of coaching is all about, Coach, is helping athletes not just get better on the court and put W's in the column, but rounding out these young women and men better for life?
It's funny that you should say that, because I think I'll take a different twist, although I agree what Ann says. But coaching in the high school level for 4 years and previously for 11 in college is that I've noticed in just this generation of high school athletes, they have a hard time competing. They're not, what I used to say when I coached at college at Loyola is that I want to get back to the 80s athlete, where they were just throw them out on the court, they're going to compete, they're going to run through walls for you as a coach, they're going to do whatever it takes to win or get that next point. Today's athlete, they're afraid to take risks. At least I've noticed in the high school athletes. And it's part of I think the hardest job for me as a high school coach is to teach them how to compete. They know how to compete in the classroom, they compete in society, they compete through peer pressure with their friends, but they have a hard time on the court learning how to put themselves out there, take those risks. So on the flip side, private lessons are good, and I think this generation, that's all they want. Private, give me a private for this, give me a private for that. Okay, where's your team? How are you going to learn how to compete? How are you going to learn adversity? How are you going to learn how to deal with a coach that you don't like or the communication's not there? How are you going to learn to get up on that line when the score is tied and you've got fans in the crowd, and are you going to make your serve over the net? So there's something to be said for privates and personal training and a very nice atmosphere. But there's the flip side where I think we need this society that we live in, it's competition. And if they're not getting it now in this atmosphere where they're supposed to have fun, how are they going to get it out when they leave high school and when they leave college?
Well, then let me ask you, Coach Radler, because I know you do some private instruction and pitching for softball. Is that something you're cognizant of? Is it we may be, if I'm reading you right, kind of killing the competitive spirit with the individualized instruction?
I certainly can agree with where Liz is going. Obviously, I take a different approach on that. I am a personal trainer, and I have done private instruction for many years in the past. And I feel as if the kids need a balance of where they are, athletically. So if they want to get more successful on the field or on the court, then they need to put that extra time in. And if they have someone that is qualified to work with them and to make them a better athlete, then absolutely they need that. In addition, though, they do need the competition, which can be brought out in private instruction, but it's a different venue. So, ultimately, what they do need is to be involved throughout the year. As Ann was talking about earlier, involved with sports. Sure. To be competitive. In this day and age, you have to be involved throughout the year with whatever sport you want to be competitive in.
Well, you'll lead me into my next topic, but what we need to do is take a short break. So if you'll give us a moment here, we'll be back more to talk some terrific women's topics with some 3 great coaches here on the MouthpieceSports.com Buzz Session.